A 2024 study conducted by the Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies revealed that close to 3 in 5 retirees exited the workforce ahead of schedule. There is roughly a 5-year gap between what Americans anticipate and what actually unfolds. Workers who haven't yet retired are aiming for age 66, while most end up retiring around 61. Americans in their 50s carry a median retirement savings balance of $460,363. The figure most Americans believe they need to retire comfortably by 2026 states at $1.46 million. Around 24 million Americans are experiencing a dramatic surge in healthcare expenses. The group facing the greatest risk is middle-income individuals between ages 50 and 64, still several years away from Medicare eligibility, now confronting healthcare costs that have doubled or tripled. Postponing Social Security claims beyond full retirement age boosts monthly benefits by approximately 8% annually until age 70, according to 2026 Delayed Retirement Credit Guidelines. Those are the figures. Now here's what they actually mean. The typical 52-year-old American today believes they have 13 years remaining before they retire. For the majority of them, that number is simply incorrect. Statistically, demonstrably incorrect. And the difference between the retirement they're building toward and the one they'll actually experience will be decided in the next 36 months, not over the next 13 years. The next 3 years specifically. Here is the core problem. Nearly 3 out of 5 retirees depart the workforce earlier than they originally planned. Not 3 out of 5 people who wanted an early exit. 3 out of 5 people who had a clear strategy were executing on that strategy and still got pushed out regardless. A 2018 analysis by the Urban Institute examining full-time workers in their early 50s found that 2 out of every 3 eventually left their positions involuntarily. Layoffs, company closures, health crises, corporate restructuring. The probability that you, at 52, will remain in full control of when you retire is, and I want you to genuinely absorb this, below 50%. And there are 4 things happening to your finances right now that your financial advisor either isn't aware of or doesn't have a direct financial reason to explain to you. We are going to cover all 4, but I want to begin with the one that catches the most people completely off guard, because it has nothing to do with your investment portfolio and everything to do with a government provision that quietly expired on December 31st, 2025. I refer to the years between age 52 and 58 as the compression zone, and everything covered today lives within that window. Here is the actual premise of this discussion. This isn't about telling you to maximize your 401k contributions and maintain a positive outlook. This is about showing you 4 specific actions that are uniquely accessible to you at 52, actions that either vanish entirely or become dramatically more costly by the time you reach 57. Some of these reflect brand new regulations that literally took effect in 2026. The conventional retirement guidance, maximize the 401k, stay invested in a target date fund, trust the 4% withdrawal rule, was engineered for a reality that no longer exists for most American workers. I'm going to demonstrate precisely how and why this guidance is letting down people inside the compression zone, and what genuinely works in its place. The reason I use the term compression zone is straightforward. Everything tightens within this window. Your remaining years to make contributions compress. Your tax planning opportunities compress. Your Social Security strategy options compress. Your healthcare exposure gap compresses, and your mistakes compound just as rapidly as your sound decisions do. A poor choice made at 52 has 13 years to cause damage. A good one has that same runway to grow into something genuinely meaningful. The compression zone is not a danger in itself. It is a mechanism, and every move described here is an effort to leverage that mechanism before it closes around you. In a few minutes, a figure that almost no retirement calculator accounts for will be presented, a fixed monthly expense that arrives regardless of what financial markets are doing, one that will dismantle an otherwise well-constructed retirement plan for anyone who leaves employment before 65 without factoring it in. Keep that in the back of your mind. But first, let's address the specific finding that was most striking when the numbers were analyzed, because it is not an investment market problem. It is a policy problem that became urgent in January 2026, and most people haven't fully grasped it yet. There is a woman, referred to here as Sandra. She spent 3 decades working in marketing at a mid-sized company. She had a clear plan: work until 62, retire on her accumulated savings combined with her husband's continued income, and use the Affordable Care Act marketplace for healthcare coverage until Medicare kicked in at 65. She reviewed the numbers in 2024. They held up. She felt confident. Then 2025 came to an end. Here is what occurred: the Enhanced Affordable Care Act. Premium tax credits that had been subsidizing health insurance for 24 million Americans since 2021 expired at the close of 2025. Congress chose not to renew them for 2026. The House passed an extension in January 2026, but as of this recording, the Senate has taken no action on it. So right now, those enhanced subsidies have ceased to exist. What that translates to in real terms is this: a 62-year-old shopping for a standard silver plan on the ACA marketplace is now paying approximately $1,072 per month per person, before deductibles, before copayments, before the out-of-pocket maximum, which in 2026 stands at $10,600 per individual. If you are a couple, one age 62 and one age 63, you are looking at roughly $2,849 per month in premiums alone. That comes out to $34,188 annually before a single medical appointment takes place. Sandra had not planned for that. Her retirement calculator had not accounted for that, and here's the aspect that makes the situation even worse. This is not market-related risk. It is not sequence of returns risk. It is a fixed monthly bill that appears whether or not the S&P 500 is rising or falling. It has no awareness of your portfolio value. It does not pause during bear markets. It simply shows up every single month, steadily depleting the savings that your retirement calculator assumed you wouldn't yet need. A 64-year-old approaching Medicare eligibility could see their annual healthcare costs increase by more than 3 times, jumping from around $5,300 to over $16,500, simply because the enhanced subsidy framework no longer exists. That represents more than $11,000 in additional expenses per year. Same person, same health status, different policy environment. Now you might be thinking, surely some subsidies still exist. Base-level subsidies do remain. But the more generous subsidy structure that made ACA marketplace coverage genuinely manageable for middle-income retirees, specifically those earning between $50,000 and $90,000 annually in retirement, that has gone under the current legal framework. Additionally, ACA pricing is age-rated. Federal regulations permit insurers to charge individuals in their early 60s up to 3 times the premium charged to a 21-year-old. So the closer you get to 65 without Medicare coverage, the more expensive private insurance becomes. The assumption isn't that you haven't saved enough. The real problem for a large portion of people inside the compression zone is holding a retirement plan that relies on employer-sponsored healthcare coverage through age 65, followed by a seamless Medicare transition, an assumption that rests on rules that are no longer in effect. So, what do you do about this at age 52? 3 things, specifically. First, and this represents the most valuable tax advantage action available to you right now. If you have access to a health savings account, you are holding one of the most powerful instruments in the entire tax code, and the majority of people are using it incorrectly. In 2026, the HSA contribution ceiling is $4,400 for individual coverage and $8,750 for family coverage. Contributions go in tax-free, grow tax-free, and come out tax-free when used for qualified medical expenses. After age 65, you can draw from it for any purpose, paying only ordinary income tax, which effectively makes it the functional equivalent of a traditional IRA with an added tax benefit layer on the contribution side. If you are inside the compression zone and not fully funding your HSA, you are leaving one of the only triple tax advantaged accounts in existence completely untapped during the exact years when you arguably need it most. Second, The healthcare gap between now and age 65 is not a retirement planning inconvenience. It is a 13-year financial modeling challenge that must begin today. You cannot delay until age 61 to calculate what healthcare will cost. By that point, your available options are already limited, and your savings are already committed elsewhere. What you can do at 52 is model the actual cost, not the subsidized figure from a calculator designed in 2022, and work backward to determine how much additional portfolio value you need to bridge that gap. Third, if your current employer provides healthcare coverage, that benefit carries a real 2026 market value of somewhere between $12,000 and $17,000 annually, depending on your age and family situation. Every additional year you remain employed past 52 is a year you are not drawing down retirement savings to cover a bill that most retirement plans entirely overlooked. That is the compression zone working against you when you exit early and working in your favor when you remain employed even 1 or 2 years longer than originally planned. Now, this is where the discussion becomes particularly compelling, and staying engaged here matters because the next section fundamentally reshaped how everything else is viewed. In a few minutes, the specific contribution structure that most people at 52 are either overlooking or using in the wrong sequence will be laid out. The opportunity cost of getting this sequence wrong is conservatively tens of thousands of dollars over the coming decade. But first, consider a statistic that proved difficult to stop thinking about for weeks after it was first encountered. 2 out of every 3 full-time workers in their early 50s eventually exit their positions involuntarily. That finding comes from a 2018 Urban Institute analysis. More recent data from Transamerica confirms the trend has not shifted. Health events, layoffs, company closures, family caregiving responsibilities. The specific causes differ, the underlying probability does not. Less than a 50% chance that you control the timing of your exit. Sit with that for a moment, because here's precisely why that figure transforms the way you should be investing at 52. You are not building a plan for one retirement scenario. You need to be simultaneously planning for 2. The retirement you intend, call it the on-track scenario, and the one that may be handed to you regardless of your intentions, which can be called the 5 years early scenario. The financially sound moves at 52 are the ones that deliver net positive outcomes across both timelines, not solely the ones that optimize for the scenario where every variable cooperates. This is what can be called dual timeline planning. It isn't complicated. You run 2 projections side by side, one in which you work until 65, and one in which something disrupts that plan at 58 or 59. You then make only the decisions that benefit both timelines. The moves that only pay off when everything goes exactly as hoped are the ones that get deprioritized. What does dual timeline planning look like in terms of concrete decisions? It means that liquidity carries more weight at 52 than most advisors acknowledge. A fully funded 401k is excellent. A 401k that you cannot access without incurring a 10% penalty until age 59 and a half also becomes a constraint if your employer eliminates your role at 57. It means constructing a taxable brokerage account alongside your retirement accounts, one that is accessible, flexible, and free of age-based restrictions. It means avoiding a situation where your entire net worth is locked inside home equity that requires a sale or a loan to access. It also means the Roth conversion window available to you right now at 52, while you are still earning a consistent income and operating within a known tax bracket, is more valuable than most people recognize. After retiring, income becomes unpredictable. Some years you draw from taxable accounts, some years you don't. The capacity to execute clean, efficient Roth conversions, transferring funds from traditional accounts into Roth accounts at a controlled tax rate, diminishes when income becomes variable. The compression zone is among the best periods in which to do this systematically, in whatever amounts keep you within your existing bracket. There is a thread to introduce here and revisit shortly. Keep a person named Robert in mind. Robert is 53, a senior engineer at a manufacturing company, earning a solid income of around $120,000 annually. He has done most things correctly. He has been maximizing his 401k since his 40s. His plan is straightforward: work until 67, claim Social Security at 67, while his wife claims spousal benefits on his record. It is a sensible plan. It is a clean plan. And it is a plan built entirely around a single scenario, the scenario in which Robert remains in complete control of his timeline. Robert's story will be revisited. For now, let's address the guidance that has been falling short for people in the compression zone over the past decade, and the precise reason it fails, because understanding the failure is the only pathway to understanding what actually delivers results. The standard retirement advice dispensed by most fee-based advisors, most bank representatives, and most online resources follows a familiar pattern. Maximize your 401k, invest in a target date fund, and trust the 4% rule to sustain your retirement. These are not harmful ideas. They are incomplete ideas, and they are incomplete in exactly the ways that matter most for someone who is 52 years old in 2026. The 4% rule was originally developed in the 1990s by financial planner William Bengen, drawing on historical market performance data. It suggests you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio each year without exhausting your funds over a 30-year retirement horizon. It is a useful reference point. Here is what it fails to account for. It does not account for a healthcare gap of $12,000 to $17,000 annually before age 65. It does not account for a forced early exit that pulls forward your withdrawal years by 5. And critically, it does not account for sequence of returns risk. Sequence of returns risk is the single most under-discussed threat in retirement planning. Here is the most direct way to explain it. Consider two identical portfolios. Both begin at $1 million. Both generate the same average annual return over 30 years. However, one experiences a 20% market decline in years 1 and 2 of retirement. The other experiences that same decline in years 28 and 29. After 30 years with identical average returns, the portfolio that declined early finishes at $880,000. The portfolio that declined late finishes at $1,358,000. Same average return, a $478,000 difference. Due entirely to timing, because when you are withdrawing from a portfolio that is simultaneously declining in value, you are liquidating assets at reduced prices that can never participate in the subsequent recovery. A 20% decline on a $1 million portfolio represents $200,000 in absolute losses. The same 20% decline on a $300,000 portfolio later in retirement, after withdrawals have already reduced the balance, costs $60,000. The earliest years of retirement are when the portfolio is at its peak size, which is precisely when an unfavorable sequence of returns inflicts the most lasting damage. That reality is absent from your 4% rule calculation. The mainstream advice to maximize your 401k and wait until 65 was designed for a world in which most people worked through age 65, maintained employer health care through 65, claimed Social Security at 65, and then drew a fixed percentage for the following 2 decades. That world no longer exists for most American workers. The advice has not kept pace with reality. And those running conventional retirement calculators lack a financial incentive to disclose where the underlying model breaks down. Here is the element that never appears in a standard retirement calculator. Understanding these numbers and constructing a system around them are two fundamentally different things. 50 years of actual retirement data were analyzed, not financial blogs or promotional brochures, and the findings were organized into what can be called the exit code. It is a digital book spanning 8 chapters, built around a mathematical framework for determining when you can genuinely exit the workforce, factoring in the healthcare gap, the sequence of returns problem, the probability of a forced early exit, and the Social Security timing decision that most people get wrong. 2 elements of the exit code are directly relevant to this discussion. One is what might be called the 4% trap, alongside a dynamic withdrawal framework that replaces it, a system that adjusts to market conditions rather than drawing a fixed amount from a portfolio that may be declining simultaneously. The other is the 58% rule, a buffer strategy built around the statistical likelihood that you will leave the workforce before you intend to, and what that means for how much you actually need before your retirement is genuinely secure, not just secure on a spreadsheet. The book is grounded in 5 decades of data, not personal opinion. It is available for less than the cost of dinner through the link in the description. If you are inside the compression zone, this is the framework worth having in your hands. Right now, back to the moves. Let's discuss the contribution structure because this is where the specific advantage of being 52 rather than 45 or 60 creates a concrete financial opportunity that most people are not taking advantage of. In 2026, the rules governing catch-up contributions changed in meaningful ways. The Secure 2.0 Act, which took effect this year, introduced new limits that carry real significance. Here is the structure. The standard 401k employee contribution ceiling in 2026 is $24,500. If you are 50 or older, you qualify for an additional $8,000 in catch-up contributions, bringing the total to $32,500. That is the figure most people are familiar with. Here is one most people have not heard of. If you are between the ages of 60 and 63, the Secure 2.0 Super Catch-Up raises that additional contribution from $8,000 to $11,250 for a total annual contribution of $35,750 per year within a single 401k. At 52, you are not yet in the Super Catch-Up window. You are in the Standard Catch-Up window. But the existence of the Super Catch-Up reframes your contribution strategy for the next 8 years because it means that if you accelerate contributions now and maintain that acceleration through ages 60, 61, 62, and 63, you have a defined runway of elevated tax-advantaged savings that no other age group has access to. Let's look at the math of what people inside the compression zone are genuinely forfeiting. If you are 52 with a solid income but currently contributing $20,000 annually to your 401k, falling short of the maximum, you are leaving $4,500 in tax-advantaged space unused each year. Over 13 years to age 65, at a 7% average annual return, that $4,500 annual shortfall compounds to approximately $98,000 in portfolio value that never materialized. Not hypothetical, real. Compounding that was entirely tax-sheltered while it grew, and that you are not capturing because of an administrative decision that takes roughly 10 minutes to correct. Now add the IRA. The IRA contribution ceiling in 2026 for those aged 50 and older is $7,500 standard plus a $1,100 catch-up contribution, totaling $8,600. That is a separate account with its own independent ceiling. Stack it alongside the 401k. If you are not maximizing both, you are missing the dual runway. There is one new complexity in 2026 worth understanding. If you are a higher earner, specifically someone who earned more than $150,000 in wages during 2025, your 401k catch-up contributions in 2026 must be directed into a Roth 401k account rather than a traditional pre-tax account. This is a secure 2.0 provision that has now fully taken effect. Some people encounter this and react with alarm. For most people inside the compression zone, it is actually a reasonable outcome. Here is why. At 52 with elevated income, your effective tax rate in retirement carries genuine uncertainty. You might face a lower effective rate in retirement, which supports the case for pre-tax contributions now. Or you might hold substantial traditional IRA balances that will generate significant required minimum distributions, potentially pushing you into a higher tax bracket in retirement than you anticipated. Roth catch-up contributions provide a hedge against that second possibility. You pay taxes at a rate you know today, and that money grows and exits completely tax-free going forward. For someone inside the compression zone, where the retirement tax picture remains unclear, that certainty carries real quantifiable value. The practical question is, what is the correct sequence for funding these accounts? because most people get the order wrong and the wrong sequence costs them meaningful after-tax returns. Here's the correct order. First, contribute to your 401k up to the full employer match, regardless of the amount. Capture every dollar of it. That is an immediate 100% return, and no other action in personal finance comes close to matching it. Second, maximize your HSA if you are enrolled in an HSA-eligible health plan. HSAs carry the strongest tax treatment of any account structure available, triple advantage when used for medical expenses, and double advantage for any other purpose after age 65. Third, maximize your IRA, including the catch-up contribution. IRA contributions provide flexibility and investment options that your 401k may not make available. Fourth, return to the 401k and fund it up to the $32,500 ceiling. Most people in the compression zone skip the HSA entirely or complete steps 3 and 4 before step 2, thereby forfeiting the best tax advantages in the process. Now let's close out the 4 moves with a single decision that will have a greater impact than any other on the lifetime income of nearly everyone inside the compression zone. Stay with this because it resolves the Robert story introduced earlier. Most people approach Social Security as a retirement decision. You stop working, you figure out when to file. That framing is mistaken, and it costs people significant money.